Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Unqualified Critics. We had a busy week this week. I know you guys all did too, watching all these videos everybody's put out. So much great content about the CES Arcade 1-ups. But we spent enough time talking about the future. Big Buck Hunter cabinet, or in my case, the Big Buck World cabinet, is here now. And I've had mine for, well, I guess a day since I've assembled it. I haven't spent quite as much time with it as I'd like, but I have played through it quite a bit. I have a lot of opinions I want to share with you. And I do want to clarify the Big Buck Hunter cabinet, the Big Buck World cabinet, they have different artwork, they have different names. They are the same cabinets with the same games list. The only difference is the appearance. So what do I think about this cabinet? Do I like it? Well, obviously I'm going to spend this review sharing with you the finer points about this cabinet. Overall, do I like it? Yeah, I do. Let me tell you a funny story. I was playing this with my girlfriend when I first assembled it, and she had never played Buck Hunter before. And she picks up the rifle, we're playing two-player. We play through a couple rounds, and she looks at me and says, "Hey, you ought to return this. This thing sucks." Okay, but it doesn't stop there. We play a couple more rounds. She gets the hang of it, and she said, "You know what? I think this one's my favorite cabinet." Without any sense of irony that just 2 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago, she wanted to return it. Now it's her favorite cabinet. And then she thought more about it and said, "Okay, maybe it's not my favorite, but Miss Pac-Man and then this one." And I have a lot of cabinets, so that's saying a lot. This is a conflicting cabinet. In some ways, it's fantastic, and even maybe better than it needs to be. In other ways, it's disappointing. There were some design concessions made here that I don't think should have been made. I think were mistakes, but it is a lot of fun, and I have had fun with it. And I'll let you know at the end if I recommend it or not. Right now, you can get this for $450 at Walmart as of recording this. You guys know how it is. These prices change. I bought mine for $500. Some people have paid $550. So there is this world of pricing, and depending on what price you're buying at, well, that's going to affect whether or not I recommend it. But we're going to talk more about that later. First, let's get into the look and feel of this cabinet. I, of course, went with the Buck World cabinet because I thought it looked better, and boy, does this look gorgeous. It really is a beautiful cabinet. Take a look at that rich, detailed artwork, and what I think brings it all together is that speaker in the center with that molded plastic grill, just like the originals. Very, very cool. The light guns look awesome in their holsters. They look great. I love the color. I don't have original hardware here to compare, but it just feels spot on. Very detail oriented and very spot on. But there are catches. Well, it sits too low. I think a little too low for optimal gameplay, but that would depend on your height. But also I think too low to look as good as it could. It just looks a little bit dwarfish. When I first saw this promoted, I don't know why I thought this. I had no reason to think it. But I thought it came with the same height riser as Star Wars. I really did. Before I took this out, or I don't know, maybe before I started playing it, I saw somebody comment, I should have had the Star Wars riser height. And I thought, well, it doesn't? No, it doesn't. It has standard riser height. You can take a look at the difference here. There's a few inches here. Had they used the Star Wars riser, that level of height, this would have been, I think, the perfect height for most people. I don't know why they didn't do that. But there's another design concession that they actually turns out had a really good reason for. That is the marquee. It does not light up. I tested this cabinet by itself mostly because I have it in its own corner, but I also did, for testing purposes, place it right next to a Golden Tee. The Golden Tee cabinet, of course, with a light up marquee. If I shot the marquee, in some cases, not always, but in some cases, it would register that as somewhere on the screen. So it would register a false positive. In other words, the little camera inside this gun would see some color combination on the marquee. It would think that that was some part of the monitor, and it would give me a shot that I didn't take. Could you avoid that? Yeah, you just don't shoot up at the marquee. If the marquee lit up, would it be the end of the world? I don't think so. Light a couple inches from the monitor didn't seem to affect shooting even the edges of the monitor. I tested for that quite a bit. But, you know, I could see if you're making the decision, should we do a light up marquee or not? And they say, well, if you shoot the marquee, it kind of screws it up. It'd be an easy decision to make. However, the marquee itself is just MDF board with a decal on it. It looks like it's molded plastic if you just looked at a glance of, like, say, a photo of it, because it's got this sort of fake shadowing. When this was first announced, I thought it was molded plastic and I just assumed it's made to look that way. And does it look terrible? No. But give us a molded plastic marquee. That would have given this a much better look. Between that and a couple inches of extra height, this thing would have had some presence that really would have been amazing. This might have been the best looking. Actually, I'll go out on a limb. If it had those two factors, this would be the best looking Arcade1up yet. So they were very close to excellence. They just weren't quite there. In some ways, it's the light guns powered by Sinden technology that are the star here. When it comes to these rifles, I think they nailed the colors. These are deeply saturated colors. The orange and the green look amazing. As far as feel, they're good, but they're not great. I mean, they feel like a toy gun, which is probably what you would expect. Cocking the gun sounds a little chintzy. You get a little bit of a squeak to it with the spring, but it feels nice. And even cocking it a lot feels fine. It doesn't feel like it's breaking down or anything, although springs do wear out over time, so eventually that will go. Presumably you could open this up, put a new spring in if you really needed to. The trigger was the most disappointing part. It has very little travel. So you pull that trigger just, I don't know, maybe a quarter of an inch and it stops. It's just not satisfying in any way. And when it stops, it's not clicking or anything. It's just kind of thud. Overall, I think they're pretty good. Now, I'm just talking look and feel. We're going to talk about accuracy next. I was asked previously, should this have wireless guns? I don't think so. The wires can be tucked into the cabinet very nicely. They also have a breakaway component. So if you're worried about standing a few feet away from the cabinet and somebody runs in between you, I mean, which nobody should do, and even kids should know better than that, but you never know. Next is gameplay. Well, it's Big Buck Hunter. It kind of is what it is. I will say they do a nice job adding mini games at the end of your hunt sessions to break things up a little bit and provide a little more of a traditional light gun type experience. Mix it up, give you some variety. Is it House of the Dead? No. But it has some advantages over those games. One, it has endless replayability. It's pretty much impossible to be dead on accurate in this game every single time. At least it is for me. Maybe you guys are better at this. But because of that, like Golden Tee, its sister cabinet, there's always a reason to come back and try to get a better score. And also, as one of my commenters pointed out, it is a really fun game to play two-player because it is so competitive. The most important part about the gameplay is going to be that light gun accuracy. First off, calibrate the rifle immediately. Also guys, pro tip when you calibrate, stand straight on from the cabinet right in the center and shoot. Don't stand off to the side where you might stand when you actually play. That gave me a better calibration outcome. And then the accuracy was pretty nice. When I shoot on calibration mode and you can see exactly where your shot is registering, no matter how still I hold it, the pixel that it shoots does jump around, and I would get 3 different pixels within a cluster that's right next to each other that it could hit. So it's not 100% complete foolproof, but it was really good. And for my purposes, playing this didn't have an issue. Where you might have problems is if you're strafing the rifle too fast across the screen. Then you will notice the input lag. You see from the future here, I'm going through and editing this video, and since I recorded it, I'm realizing it's not input lag that's the problem. It's the duration of time it takes for the camera inside this gun to actually record its image. That's an important element of cameras. Can you get that really fast snapshot? And based on the not optimal performance when you're moving the light gun really fast across the screen, that seems to be the issue here. Not a big deal and isn't going to affect gameplay too much. I would just say when you're strafing the gun across the screen, just keep it kind of reasonable. Don't try to go super fast, but you don't really need to move super fast in this game anyway. So the light gun is good, high marks there. Screen size is really the problem with gameplay, guys. It is too small. Shooting animals in the farthest background is quite difficult. Now, I'm glad they added an easy mode to take some pressure off of this. That was something I'd hoped they would add, and they did, so I need to give them credit for that. But let's face it, this game was designed for a 25-inch playfield, and we're getting, well, not even a 17-inch playfield because we've got that white border, so really 16 and a half. I think this should have been 20 at least. I think they should have spent the extra, let's say $25 to source a larger monitor. And I think going forward, I'm going to really hope that their light gun games have a larger monitor. Now, on the other hand, the arcade light gun games like, let's say, House of the Dead, are less precision-oriented than this, so maybe there a 17-inch screen would be okay. But for Buck Hunter, the precision is really unforgiving. We needed a bigger screen. All that is to say, overall, the gameplay is good. Enthusiasts of the game, it's going to look and feel like you remember. But is it perfect? No, and mainly because of that monitor. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about audio quality. A member of the channel, Lewis Nicholson, asked about this specifically. Are there any gun sound effects? In other words, when you pull the trigger, do you get a nice boom sound? What does it sound like when you chamber around? Does it sound real? I would say, yeah, it sounds real. I mean, I'm sure they did a detailed job collecting these sound effects originally when this game was made. I don't think the source material is the issue. The issue is there's minimal bass, so you're not getting that boom. So you're asking, does it give me a boom sound? Not really. Does it sound like a gun? Yeah, with all the bass taken out. So you're not getting that impact. You're not feeling any impact at all when you shoot the gun. Bottom line on the audio quality, I probably wouldn't have pointed this out too much if it weren't for the multiple questions I got on it. It's acceptable. It is not great. This isn't going to be that hi-fi experience that you might have experienced in the arcade on original hardware. I think the speaker just isn't large enough to generate a lot of bass. And then that's going to be a function of this cabinet overall is shrunk down. As long as you don't turn the audio up really high, you won't notice distortion. But if you go near those top levels, the level 13, 14, 15 of the audio notches, it distorts really badly. So do not do that for the love of God and for the sake of your eardrums. But if you stay in those middle levels, which in my opinion are plenty loud, then it sounds perfectly decent. Just know you're not going to get much bass. I want to take a moment to note that we're getting 3D graphics here. I mean, that is a first for Arcade1up. This is a new high watermark. It looks to me like the same PCB from the Outrun cabinet, but I don't have that cabinet. I can't directly compare. It has that active cooling system, so it's got a large metal heat sink, and it's got a fan on top of it. It does create some sound. You will hear it. Basically, it's a really small fan. It's inside of a tin casing that surrounds the PCB. The casing itself has just, I think, 8 pinholes, really small pinholes. And then the rear panel of the cabinet has the same vent openings as all the other Arcade1ups. I hope and assume Arcade1up has play tested this at length to make sure that the ventilation is appropriate. Because that's a big problem with electronics. You get into more substantial computing power and simple physics, we're going to get heat. And we need a place to dissipate that heat. So we have a fan to throw the heat off, but then it's throwing it right into a metal shell, and then it has to dissipate out the sides. To me, it seems like a weird design. I'm not an expert on cooling electronics, so I'm not telling you guys this is wrong. It might be okay. It's just something to keep an eye on. I haven't heard of anyone having problems with Outrun, and it seemed to have the same cooling system. So hopefully it's just not an issue at all. But I am really glad we're getting a PCB powerful enough to emulate a 3D game. That's a huge milestone, guys. We should be stoked about that. And I think there are much more to come on the 3D gaming front. Final thoughts. Do I recommend the Big Buck Hunter or Big Buck World cabinets from Arcade1up? Well, the answer is mostly yes, but let me explain. This launched at Best Buy for $550. After spending some time with this cabinet, I feel pretty confident $550 is too expensive. At that price point, it is inexcusable we don't get a larger monitor, and the flaws of this cabinet become a little bit abrasive. However, right now, Walmart has this for $450 with free shipping. At that price point, this is a fantastic package. Overall, though, on its own merits, the cabinet is good. It looks great. It's going to look really cool in your game room or your man cave or bro zone, dude spot, or perhaps guy space. It's certainly going to be a centerpiece, which increasingly Arcade1up are making a lot of products that are centerpieces. Makes you wonder how many centerpieces we can have in our game rooms. I guess the answer is a lot. But it's got presence, it looks neat, and then there's just that wow factor of using light guns on an LCD screen without a sensor bar. I mean, that is super awesome. I'm really excited to see what they come out with next. I really hope they hear this feedback. And I think a lot of you guys are going to have this feedback too if you buy this cabinet, that the monitor needs to be larger for light gun cabs going forward. Thank you so much for watching. The channel is growing. It is 100% because of you. If you enjoy the video, do hit that like button. That helps every single time. Make sure you're subscribed. And I'll talk to you guys soon with more news and reviews on Home Arcade. Take care, guys. Hey, consider hitting that join button to support the channel, and thanks so much for watching.
Dripping lights paint the sky.